Yeah, so we work with all our fighters directly. And, I think we're seeing more and more athletes, especially MMA fighters, realizing the importance of building their personal brands because fighting or sports only lasts so long. You need to have other ventures, other ways to make money, or else you'll be like some of these older fighters that are fighting until they're 50 years old when their body doesn't work anymore, but they need to get that paycheck.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
I think Nick was a little bit shocked when I started out speaking a bit of Russian. He said, "Oh God, is this whole podcast going to be in Russian?" I said, "No, because I only know about 3 words in Russian." So we're set. But we've got Nick Frayter with us, and Nick is a digital nomad, a 6-figure agency owner and a brand manager for some of the biggest names in combat sport, like Mike Perry and Yoel Romero. He's gone from earning peanuts to being 100% in control of his own life. So Nick, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Nicholas. Excited to be here.
So we're going to talk a little bit about personal branding. We're going to talk a little bit about building your own brand, but I think it might be good just going through your journey. And I saw that there was a rugby ball in your hand at some stage. So anyone who plays rugby is okay in my books because I'm from South Africa. So we love rugby. So the MMA, yeah, we've also got I think we've got a decent MMA fighter somewhere in the ring.
You guys have a UFC champion right now, Dricus Duplessis. Very excited.
Exactly. I don't know. I wanted you to say it, not me. That's just boasting. So talk to me a little bit about your background. I see you went to Georgetown. I mean, you must have either had tons of student debt and that to work off, and that's why you went into the corporate route. But what got you motivated to go out of corporate in a nice job at Ernst Young or EY and companies like that and running your own business, doing MMA and hanging around Mike Tyson and Steven Crowder and folks like that?
Yeah, Steven Crowder. You're definitely right about the student debt part. Still dealing with that, unfortunately. But I graduated university in 2022, and working at Ernst Young was my first real job out of college. I was an IT consultant, basically an auditor. I was not learning anything there. I wasn't gaining any skills, didn't really enjoy my time there. So I knew that I needed to make a change. And originally, I wanted to become a software developer. So I was self-studying software development while I was living with my brother at the time, wanted to go out and start his own business while he was managing, he had the experience working with people like Mike Tyson, Steven Crowder, but he wanted to go out and start his own thing. I ended up getting a job in a country called Cyprus, small little country in the Middle East, technically European Union as well. But my brother and I, we both moved out there. Was working as a software developer while my brother was starting out his own content agency and leveraging the experience that he had. So I would come home from like 6, 7 o'clock, help my brother out with small little tasks, build out our website, do some outreach for clients, things like that. And that was last April. So coming up on a year now. That was from last April to September. We lived very humbly. We were both really working hard on the business, me as well on my 9 to 5. And then in September of 2024 was when we had enough clients to where I was able to quit my 9 to 5 fully and transition full time into our business.
Must have been a little bit of stress during that period. I mean, bootstrapping your business with your own cash and without having sort of outside funding is always quite a baptism of fire for most businesses. When you started out this business, or when your brother started out this business and the two of you in partnership now, what is the vision for this business? So before we go into that, explain what Frayter Media does.
Yeah, so we build brands for CEOs, high-level executives, as well as athletes, essentially people that are really looking to take their brand to the next level. This is through digital content, through video content, whether that be podcasts, whether that be short form reels, as well as a lot of graphic design we do as well, and copywriting for our clients to make sure that their brand is presented as best as possible to their audience and they're getting the right message that they want out there.
A lot of people want to work directly with CEOs and with celebs. And you seem to have done that. What gave you the confidence, or how did you get into this space? Because, starting in September last year, I've had to look at the kind of guys that you're hanging out. How did that happen? Is that just luck? Is that hard work? Is that, it's a very unusual position that you're finding yourself in?
Mhm. Yeah, so biggest thing I would advise anybody is to leverage the experience that you have, leverage the skills that you already have. My brother, he has the experience of managing socials for like Mike Tyson, Steven Crowder, as we mentioned, people with millions and millions of followers. So instead of thinking about something completely different in a different realm, we leveraged that experience and said, okay, let's start a business in this sphere since we already have a big leg up on the rest of the competition. So that played a huge role in getting into some of these other circles, these new circles that we've gotten into more recently, and establishing our credibility so far in the industry.
I've mentioned two names in your profile, Mike Perry and Yoel Romero. How important is it to be a specialist in one particular arena, like the MMA or the fighter circuit? Why? What made you sort of focus in on that?
Yeah, so a little backstory. The reason how my brother even got the opportunity to work with Mike Tyson and to be his social media manager was because his agency was looking for somebody that both knew social media very well and knew combat sports very well. So it's hard enough to find an expert in one of those two, but even harder to find an expert in both of those things. So specializing in something, like combat sports has been very beneficial to us because we know that the competition is pretty small. It's a very niche market, niche industry, but that has also helped us a lot in terms of creating good content because you can ask us any question about mixed martial arts and we know it. So as a result, we know exactly what content people want to see, what happened in the past that was interesting, what's coming up that people are talking about. So specializing in one thing really gives you the foresight to see what content will do well.
And I guess looking behind the scenes, you guys are playing an extremely important role in building up the profile of these fighters, building up potential brand endorsements, because the more they get seen, the more engagement they get, the better for them. How is it like working with these fighters? Do you have to work through the agents? Do you meet with them directly? Do they understand the importance of brand and marketing and social media? Or is this something they just say, just get me on the gram or on TikTok?
Mhm. Yeah, so we work with all our fighters directly. And, I think we're seeing more and more athletes, especially MMA fighters, realizing the importance of building their personal brands because fighting or sports only lasts so long. You need to have other ventures, other ways to make money, or else you'll be like some of these older fighters that are fighting until they're 50 years old when their body doesn't work anymore, but they need to get that paycheck. For example, Mike Perry, he was very successful in the UFC and he's a very successful boxer at the moment, or bare knuckle, but he's starting his own fight organization. He's starting his own tequila brand. He has his own podcast. So it's really cool seeing somebody go from just a fighter to all of these different ventures that they're now building out. Even fighters that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. Max Griffin is an example. He's a UFC fighter. He constantly posts LinkedIn content, building his personal brand. So I think not all fighters have realized the importance of it, but we're starting to see more and more athletes building their personal brand.
Now, what's quite interesting with these folks that you've mentioned is that there's a lot of amazing new media that they can take advantage of, which gives them access to new audiences or potential audiences that perhaps the legacy media and legacy PR agencies aren't as capable of getting. For example, podcasts. And I see Patrick Bet David as well as one of the folks that you met, and I love his show as well. And maybe tell me about how important new media is for these guys who probably don't have tons of cash behind them to build their social media brand. So how do you leverage new media to build your client's online profile?
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, it's no secret, no doubt that we've seen a massive shift from old media, television, traditional TV channels to everything is being shown on social media now. Everybody has a phone in their hand. That's how they consume content. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, those sorts of platforms. And it's also never been easier for a fighter or anybody to get their personal brand out there. For example, we're using Riverside right now. I don't know how much the subscription is per month, like let's say $40. And you can have high quality podcast footage just like that. That's exactly what we use for our fighters as well. We use Riverside. Super easy to have remote guests from anywhere in the world. And from that, you're able to really get your message out across there, really just create high quality content for social media platforms. So the world has never been, I guess, more open to these fighters and athletes creating content.
One of the things that you probably have to deal with on a day-to-day basis now is contract and lawyers, because a lot of the content that you're going to want to share and use is going to have some kind of rights usage restrictions on them. Talk to me maybe about, because one of the things people are a bit uncertain of is how can you use televised content? How can you use, photographs that you get on the internet and things like that? Obviously, hopefully your clients own lots of the rights to this stuff, but how complicated is it getting ownership or getting access or getting usage rights of content where your customers actually in?
Mhm. So I think we see this mostly with our corporate clients, some of our CEOs and executives that we manage. And most of the B-roll we try to take from their footage, their past experiences, because it is a personal brand. We want to highlight them as much as possible and their expertise. But in terms of the usage rights for different types of content, we try to be very selective about the B-roll that we use, the content that we put out there, and make sure we're not putting our client in a vulnerable position or anything that can harm their brand potentially.
Now, you must travel around a bit. I saw Cyprus, Turkey, and a whole bunch of other places. Talk to me about if somebody is looking at starting their agency. Typically in the olden days, 5 years ago, people would have an office or get a shared office somewhere. Talk to me a little bit about your setup and how flexible you've created your business life so that you can move around with your customers or have the freedom to.
Yeah. So we live really in an unprecedented time of remote work, you being able to make money, interact with clients, big level names from anywhere in the world. So that's really an incredible opportunity that we didn't have 10 years ago. I guess it's just the most important thing is to find a place that you're productive, invest in the equipment necessary to make sure that you have a good home office because it will pay off, whether that be a good microphone if you're filming podcasts, whether that be a comfortable chair, comfortable mouse, things like that. That's, goes a long way into creating a more productive environment for you because when you are working remotely, that is super important. I would also suggest looking into co-working spaces if you are somebody that likes to work with other people or at least just have other people around you. I know that's something that I really enjoy. So co-working spaces can be a great alternative for you to still have the freedom to work wherever you want, but also not be isolated and have that social interaction.
Yeah, and you can meet some interesting folks as well. It's like traveling business class. You can always chat to the person next to you and they've got an interesting story. Just avoid Regis. That's your biggest surprise success to date. I've seen on your website a whole bunch of, and I'll just, if I just share the screen here, folks who are watching this online will be able to see a little bit about what your lifestyle looks like and some of the clients that you've got, which I think is just pretty cool. But you talk about, you have, a couple of really impressive numbers here on the clients that you're working with, both on YouTube, on podcasts, and a variety of other areas. Maybe talk to me about something that sort of shocked you in terms of a campaign or activity that you ran that really worked. And you can be honest and say, some of these things are luck, some of them are hard work, or some of these things just come out of the blue. Can you kind of guarantee something, or is it something that is built over time?
Yeah, so I've definitely been super surprised seeing the numbers that some of our reels hit. For example, for Mike Perry's podcast, that's about MMA and combat sports. Some of the reels I remember cutting myself. I remember going back into his old podcast episodes, saying, "Okay, this would be a good moment," having a vision for the reel, cutting it myself, adding the B-roll, and then one of them has, I think, 1.7 million views, and then the other one has, I think, like 870,000-ish views. So it's just really cool because I was the one that went back and picked it out. Not to humble brag here, but no, we have a great team of also video editors that help out and make everything happen as well. It's just really cool to have your idea go from your head to on screen and seeing that people are actually really enjoying the content that you're putting out there. And I think it all goes back to my in-depth knowledge of combat sports.
But let's also not discount your auditing skills, because one of the interesting things is that no experience that anyone's ever had is a useless experience, even if it was a trash experience. How has your auditing experience helped you in the work that you're doing, if at all?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, not really a lot. I think, during my auditing job, I didn't learn too much, but my software development job is where I learned a lot of my skills. That taught me a lot about thinking logically, breaking down problems into small steps, having, I guess, a vision for something, and then again, taking it step by step to seeing, okay, how can I put one foot forward and get closer and closer to that goal? So that was definitely very helpful for me in terms of transitioning into content from software development, as well as obviously some of the business skills that I learned from Georgetown were also very helpful because I also do accounting for the company. I also do sales for the company, a lot of different hats that I need to wear. So I do leverage my past experiences like that to help me now.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You've got the advantage of your BBA degree from Georgetown. And as this business grows, which it hopefully is going to continue to do, I mean, you guys in the early days, so you're still in the exciting phase where you're waking up and going, hell, let's make some money. And you don't have an HR department. You don't have 100 staff underneath you yet. You've chosen a niche that is growing significantly and fast. What have you guys set out as a goal for 2025? Let's just keep it at 2025. And then what is your longer term goal in terms of this business? Is it again to go from just reconstituting content from your clients, creating strategies, or are you going to add new services, perhaps create your own content, shows, etc.? What is the plan for Frayter Media?
Yeah. So for 2025, we have two goals. One is to keep doing an amazing job for our current clients. We book a lot of guests for our podcasts as well. So we want to keep bringing amazing guests on our different podcasts and just providing the highest quality content and service that we can for our current clients, as well as always find new and more interesting clients that we can bring on. Always looking to grow our team, hiring different individuals to help us with managing all these different clients, more CEOs, maybe in different countries. I know one of the podcasts we manage is in Spanish. I'd love to have maybe some CEOs from different countries outside of the US that we add to our portfolio. And the long-term goal would be to get Frayter Media to a self-sustaining position to where the company can run by itself. We have the right people, the right systems in place that can really manage the company on autopilot. And then my brother and I, Gary, our CEO, we want to keep building our personal brands and really become leaders in space of marketing or whatever path that we choose. That is going to come down to keep creating content, keep coming on podcasts, and keep networking in our industry.
Well, you've mentioned a couple of the key things there. Building a personal brand. I mean, you're doing that for customers. You may as well do it for yourself and use all of those advantages that you've got. I look forward to seeing, maybe let's have a catch up in 6 months and see where you are in 6 months, because it'll be interesting to see how this business plans change and strategies change. You might get a couple of big clients and that might just shoot you off into a completely different trajectory. But I look forward to see you guys grow. And yeah, thanks for coming on the call.
Thanks so much.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's Kuhne.no for more information.